Hello friends, welcome to Code Crush Coding. In the previous video we have learned the concept of exception handling and also understand the three important keywords in exception handling: try, catch and finally block. So in this video we will see some another questions here. So let's start with the first question. So is it necessary that each try block must be followed by catch block? So we have learned how to declare a try, catch and finally block. But is it necessary that each try block must be followed by a catch block? So it is not necessary that try block must be followed by a catch block. It should be followed either by a catch block or a finally block. So if you don't provide a catch block after the try block, it is fine, but it should either be provided by a catch as well as finally. So you can have any of this block after the try block. So let me show you in the demo here. So in the previous video we have learnt about these two exceptions, arithmetic exception as well as the array index out of bound exception. So what we can do now, here we can see try is followed by a catch block, right? So if I don't provide this catch block as our question says, so what does the question says? Is it necessary that try must be followed by a catch? So it is not necessary, right? So here I will directly provide as finally block. So if I provide here finally and print here some message, sys out completed, okay. And if I try to run this code now, so see, we are getting the message here as completed and the exception is thrown. So it is not necessary to follow the try block by catch. We can also write the finally block here. Now moving towards the next question. So can finally block be used without a catch? So yes, according to a definition of finally block, it must be followed by a try or catch block. Therefore we can use try block instead of catch. So here we can see we have used finally block without a catch block, right? So we can use it. And also here you can see we have used the finally block after the catch block, so it is also fine. So we can have the finally block followed either by a try block as well as followed by a catch block. So I hope you have understood these two questions. So always remember the hierarchy in which we can use the try, catch and finally block. Now let's move towards the next question. So what is the output of the following Java program? So here we have one class exception handling example. Inside that we have one main method, and here we are trying to divide a number by 0. So it will throw an exception, right? But here the try block is followed by two catch block. So first catch block is having the exception, which is the root class, and we are printing that exception, and another catch is a precise exception which says arithmetic exception. So what we will do, we will try to execute this on our demo. So this is the same code as this one. So what we can do, first we will have here exception, and we will print that message here. So we can have here e.get message to get a message there, and you can also print directly the e, that is also fine. And now we will introduce one more catch block which will say arithmetic exception. So here I will introduce another catch block which will say arithmetic exception, and let's say ex is the object for it, and we will print that ex here. Now you can see we are getting an error. So what does the error says? Unreachable catch block for arithmetic exception. It is already handled by the catch block for exception. So the exception is already handled inside this exception, right? Because this is a root exception. So all these exceptions are already available inside this exception class, right? Or exception package. So that's why this is an unreachable code. The code will never come to this part. So that's why it is throwing an error. So if you want to provide these two exceptions, so always remember that your root exception should be the last one. So this code will work when I will introduce, or I will write this catch block before this catch block, okay? So if I write it here, then there is no error in the code. And if I try to run this code, so let's run this code. Let's enter first number is 6 0. So we are able to handle the exception, arithmetic exception divided by 0. So always remember your root exception should be the last exception in your catch block. So if you are trying to write multiple catch blocks, then your root exception should be the last one. So that is explained here. Arithmetic exception is the subclass of exception. So all the exceptions are the subclass of this exception class. Therefore it cannot be used after exception. Since exception is the base class for all the exception, therefore it must be used at last to handle the exception. No class can be used after this. Now let's see similar thing in our second exception, which is our arithmetic exception. Now let's say I remove this finally block here and I try to write the catch, and if you write the exception first, and I will say a message sysout E, and I will introduce another catch block here which will say arithmetic exception E EX. You can give any name here. We will say yes sysout and we'll print EX. Now here you can see we are getting error which says unreachable catch block for arithmetic exception, as it is already handled by the catch block. Here we don't need to write arithmetic because we are handling here array index out of bound exception. So we'll print it. So we are getting the similar message which is of unreachable catch block. So what we can do, we can write this exception after the array index out of bound exception, because this is our parent exception, right? So once we write the exception in the last, we will able to run this code. Now let's run this code. So see, we are getting error message array index out of bound exception for this index position 2, because there is no index position 2 available here, which is this is index position first and this is index position 0. So that's it in this video. We will see another exception handling questions in the next video. Thank you for watching.